So, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Hamilton County Solid Waste Management District meeting, or policy committee. Actually haven't had one of these in person for quite a long time.
Over a year.
Good to be back. Good to see everyone here. So we do have a quorum today of the policy committee, but we do have two members actually who couldn't make it today. Commissioner Dreehouse and Commissioner Thank you. Couldn't remember his last name. See, that's how long it's been since we've been. Yeah. All right. Michelle, are there any additions to the agenda by you or any of the policy committee members?
Not fighting.
All right. I think we'll go ahead and get started. We've got somewhat of a long agenda, so we'll try to get through it in an efficient manner. All right. So first line of business we have here is approval of our meeting minutes from the May 19th meeting we had, which was virtual. I'm sorry. Do we have some folks virtual? Yeah, welcome. I see Mike Kramer, Tom Moore, and Lily Reich. All right, Lily, there's more.
Okay.
It's gonna be coming on.
We're gonna leave it at that then. We may spend all day recognizing people, but thank you for joining us virtually as well. Appreciate it. There you go.
Should I make a motion
What do you want to make a motion?
to approve the minutes?
Yeah, that's fine.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll second that. Okay, we got a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. All right, we'll move on to our district revenue update, which was attachment B. Everyone's got a copy of that. Michelle, were you gonna?
Sure, yeah, I can give just a brief overview in case you didn't have time to crunch the numbers. Originally, we started the year slightly lower than 2020, but the last 3 months, the revenue has been slightly higher than 2020. So overall, we have a 6,900 ton increase and a $29,000 increase over 2020. In-district tonnage is decreased by 13,000 over 2020. Out-of-state tonnage has decreased over 2020 by 2,600 tons roughly, and then out-of-district tons has increased by about 23,000 tons over 2020. Overall, not a huge shift percentage-wise between the 2 years.
All right. Any questions from the policy committee?
Yeah, I find district revenues like a double-edged sword. You want the revenues, but you want the decreased tonnage. So you mentioned decreased in-district tonnage. How is that trending over the years? Is that?
I could pull it out just from the top of my head. It seems like our tonnage has gone down over the years from in-district.
Yeah.
We consistently have seen a decrease. I feel like I'm always saying in-district ton has decreased, but I could verify that and actually do a spreadsheet if that would be helpful.
Yeah, I think it would be. Attribution might be difficult on cost, but how do we measure the district's work success? Is it through the diversion rate?
The diversion rate's one. We have performance measures for different programs.
Yeah.
So, depending on the program, we try to come up with a good measurement, whether it be tons. If we can't measure tons, maybe it's how many people we've reached, or, how many bins we've sold, that kind of thing. So we try to come up with a performance measure for each program.
Okay. That kind of answers my question.
Raj, any questions for Karen or Sue? All right.
Your performance, I did have one.
Good.
Performance measures are usually in here, but they're not in here, or am I missing them?
No, they're not. We did not finish them for the second quarter.
Okay.
We're still wrapping up the last few numbers, so we'll have those for the next one.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I don't think we need to approve those, correct? Is that
That's correct.
Michelle? Okay. Let's move on to our next item then. That's the policy committee items. We have one item under that, and that is the proposed 2022 budget. This would be something that we would recommend for approval back to the county commissioners. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay.
So we have to submit the budget to the county commissioners for official approval. And this budget is very similar to 2020's budget, and I tried to present it in a similar fashion to previous years. I did highlight a few of the bigger differences, one of those being there is an increase in cost of staffing, primarily because of an additional Department of Environmental Services accountants. The solid waste pays a portion of that, and a social media intern, and then also just an overall increase in medical benefit costs for staff. And then we did not buy a solid waste vehicle this year. One reason, we didn't really need it because we're not doing as many programs, obviously, but also there's a nationwide vehicle shortage. So even though we budgeted for it this year, we did not buy one. So we have budgeted for it next year as well. That doesn't mean we're buying two vehicles. We're just not going to buy one this year. It will be next year. Hopefully that shortage rectifies itself and vehicles are available. We also did not budget for a plan consultant, which is what we had, because that cost is coming out of this year's budget. And we increased the waste reduction innovation grant by $50,000, so overall it's $150,000. We've just seen an increase in interest in that grant and thought it would be pertinent to increase that. So the other thing I wanted to point out was the carryover balance. We have a significant carryover balance and want to incorporate discussions on that into our plan update process over the next year, how to use those funds. And you've received these, so I'm not going to go in detail over the whole narrative, but I did highlight some of the bigger programs as far as cost. Nothing in the programs has drastically changed. I also did an analysis of what we projected in the solid waste plan and what we're spending. The big difference is we have a big increase in personnel over what we were planning in the plan, and then we've had increase in the yard trimmings and house hazardous waste program costs over what we were planning. And then I kind of itemized it out so that you could kind of see per program what it was. And then the last thing I wanted to point out was just the pie chart at the very end. I think this is a good way to visualize. I'm a visual person, so visualize where our budget is. The biggest item is grants, and the second is personnel, but you can kind of see where everything lies in that. So any questions, I'm happy to address them.
So, the residential recycling incentive program, where the money goes back to the communities, it used to be over $1 million. And I thought it was gonna go back to $1 million when we had good cash flow, when we had money again.
Right, so what we put in the plan was that we were gonna budget $800,000 for that program, and then if if revenue was over $2.5 million, we would budget $900,000 for that plan, which is what we've done since the plan has started because our revenue has been over 200.
But it is possible to go ahead and make it $1 million if we wanted, because there's like $2 million extra in our carryover.
If we wanted to request that budget, we could.
Okay.
It would be my recommendation not to do that. I don't see any direct increase in diversion that we would see as a county by putting more funds into that tonnage, right? More funds into that grant program. We're not going to see new diversion because of that. Does that make sense?
Well, potentially. But it's the communities who pay in, and the idea is to give it back to the communities originally.
Yeah, just as a follow-up question, when will we actually discuss what to do with that carryover money? Is that?
It will be during the plan update process. So one of the future meetings.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Well, I'm a small dollar guy, so I had a question for you on the $50,000 increase in the waste reduction innovation grant. It's not really about the amount, but, and correct me if I'm wrong, I thought over this past year or so, you get I'll say increased effort to make folks more aware of that program, and so it looks like maybe that is hopefully gonna pay off in terms of more people getting involved with that and applying for those grants. And I like those grants because they're spread pretty widely and pretty much open on what can be done with them, so, okay. I wanna make sure I have the right program on that.
That's right.
Thank you, Michelle.
Mm-hmm.
Michelle, the residential program,
Go ahead.
do aggressive campaigns so the people know what the program available?
Do you mean the residential recycling
Yes.
advertising? Yes. So we budget $100,000, we did that this year and next year, to do a residential campaign to, increase awareness of what you can and cannot recycle.
What type of, method you use, media, anything?
So we've not developed a plan for this year. In the past, we've, had a lot of success with doing videos. People love videos, they love to watch videos, so we'll do, short commercials basically, and then, pay for them to be like, before you watch your YouTube video that you're trying to watch, you watch that. We've also done them on television, on just regular television, and then on Hulu and those, other kinds of places. We've done a lot of digital advertising where, it's on, websites, so we try to get out there where people are.
Okay, thank you.
Michelle, just to follow up on that $100,000 for recycling education, I mentioned to Sue earlier, I've been volunteering down at the hub, and part of my time, every time I go, is spent educating people about what can go into the Rumpke bin. And these are well-motivated people who are coming to the hub, and they are confused. I can't tell you how many, we have a Rumpke recycling dumpster outside, how much stuff comes out of the stuff people are bringing, because we don't want to take what Rumpke will take. People are so confused, and I told Sue, I've had arguments with several people about the fact that the requirements for the bins are the same in the city and the county. People don't believe that. They think the city takes number ones, and I'm just saying, education is so important. So important, and understanding what the confusions are, not just educating people about the same stuff that goes on the refrigerator magnets, because people all have those, and they look at them, and they take away different messages, so.
Right, and so a focus on adult education, not just children, because the adults are the decision makers with the car keys,
Yeah.
coming down to the hub.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I agree, what you're saying, the education, it's this learning past messages, is what it is.
It is a fast message,
Yeah.
it's to say one thing too.
Yeah, and I think part of the messaging is saying that it's a unified system countywide.
Right.
I think that's part of the system.
They live in the city, and that's an exception. I'm just saying, I'm just saying.
I know.
You know, but what is confusing though is depending on where you live, how you get your bin changes. I mean,
Yeah, it does. It does.
yeah.
Because I live outside the city, and I do get Rumpke service, and it's very good service, but you acquire your service differently.
Yes,
Yeah,
and so that kind of makes people think, well,
Yeah.
right, they taste might be different too.
yeah. I do have one question. The vehicle, will that be an electric vehicle?
We are considering it, and that's another reason to put it off, because
Yeah.
one of the facility improvements we're gonna do is to put in electric charging stations.
Yeah.
So it's possible, I can't make any promises, but
I would
I would
encourage
like
it.
to.
I would definitely encourage it.
It's a long wait for that, they like vehicles,
Yeah.
long wait.
It might be worth the wait.
I guess, sort of, commenting on what you said about education, I mean, the district overall does education as well, so.
Yeah.
And that's really not I don't see increasing, the RRI program by $100,000, to handle that when it's already being done multiple ways, even though there's still obviously a long way to go, but yeah, people do get confused. I think sometimes they just don't read the information also, so.
Well, I think you may be right in not reading it, but our Beyond 34 program, from the last few years, identified that as the number one problem throughout the city. That the miscue with the public on what is recyclable and what isn't. And the residential and the commercial stream, working groups identified that as the number one problem, is leading towards contamination, is what is recyclable and what isn't. And how to tackle that, many people have different answers to that. I mean, there are multiple ways to approach that. How to advertise or answer that issue. You could approach it many different ways, but that is a problem out there.
A little observation, I had the opportunity to be out in the San Jose area, heavily regulated on the waste side and even on the recycling side, and they have the same problem. Watching the material come in at a material recovery facility out there, that they have an extensive separation at the material recovery facility. You see the material coming in, and they have that same issue, trying to get people to focus on that goes in, that doesn't, kind of thing.
Mr. Chairman, just to Bob's point, I think the whole issue of education isn't for lack of trying. I think Rumpke and staff have worked pretty closely together with developing educational programs and flyers and whatever. There's a whole gamut of things out there. If people choose not to read it or to understand it, it's kind of hard for us to, if we can just keep adding things or keep improving the message, I guess.
Yeah.
But you're always going to have these non-compliant people that don't want, are not interested. They will recycle, but maybe not to the extent that we'd like them to, or contamination is always a big problem for us. But I think there's a good effort. Improving the message is probably always something that we want to do, but I think it's not for lack of effort.
Well, I can say we, put in our solid waste plan that we would budget $100,000, which is what I've put in there, but if the policy committee wants to put more funds in that, we can. So, if you want to put more than $100,000 in residential recycling education, we can. I mean, we could spend more, if that's what you want to do.
I support the 100,000 and see how that does. I mean, we'll talk later about the excess funds of the district, but I support the current budget recommendation. I will say that Molly was on our committee and very supportive, and we saw Rumpke's efforts, and we really appreciate that. But I think with the district's additional funding, I think that will help. I just see it as a huge problem. I think the 100,000 is needed. I recognize the skepticism, but you got to be smart in how you use the money. You could throw money at the problem and it might not make a difference, and so you got to be smart in how you do it. And I've got years of practice in spending money on advertising and not resulting with anything positive.
Right, I would want to see the behavior change results before I threw another 100,000 at it, not just a bunch of likes.
Yeah.
There's studies out there on behavior change and how to handle it through, and I think your video approach is a good approach. I think it is. But people are changing in the way they're viewing advertising and discarding certain messages, and so we've got to be cautious there. But I do support your recommendation.
I did have a question about Rumpke. Are you guys going to be resuming the tours?
Yes.
Do you have?
I'm not sure to what capacity, but we have started back up again.
Okay.
Yeah, Molly would probably be a good one to or Ann, to see what that schedule looks like.
Okay. Yeah, last I spoke with them, they had not gotten approval to resume. Okay. Good to know.
I know there's no, go ahead, Bob.
No, I was just going to say, I love the tours, and that's an educational tool.
Yeah.
And I'd add the message in the tours, if it's not already there, that it costs money whenever there's a contamination strain.
Well, you're talking about tours at the recycling center?
Yeah, the adult
I'm not
tours.
sure, I can't speak to what we're doing at the recycling center for tours, but we have started them back up again.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, but.
Because those are your people that you're talking to, and that they're eager for adult education.
Yeah. All right, cool. Any other questions out of the policy committee? Otherwise, we can wrap up the discussion on the budget to propose to the county commissioners. And can I have a motion to approve this as a recommendation to the county commissioners?
So move.
Karen?
I'll second.
Bob seconds. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. did forget to mention, that's why Commissioner Fortune was so good at this, never got any. We do record these meetings, by the way, and that's a standard practice, we do in every one of our meetings, so Susan's memory's not that good. Remember 2 hours of conversation, so I just want to make everyone aware of that, so you know. Our next item is a recognition for Lily. Lily was our student representative here. Lily, you still with us? Not sure, because she couldn't make it either.
She's right there.
Her name is up.
Right. So Lily served as our last, student representative. This was something, I believe, this was Commissioner Fortune's original idea, I think, to include, a student on there. There you are, Lily. How you doing?
Hi, Lily.
Hi, everybody. How are you?
No, you can see it sort of.
Okay, now I see.
Oh my goodness, that is awesome.
Thank you. We really appreciate the input you've had. You always get us thinking in a little different way, which was, I think, Commissioner Fortune's original idea behind having this on. We appreciate you putting the time, in particular over this past year with COVID and everything else that was going on, and we really want to thank you and wish you best in your future endeavors.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. I'm glad that we were able to make everything work remotely this year. Working with the committee has been such a dream, and it's brought me and my peers at school and my environment class like really close. And I'm just really grateful for this experience. So thank you.
So we hope you have some time in the future to come and attend a few of our future meetings. But I know you're going to be extremely busy, I'm sure, as you move forward with your endeavors. But again, the entire policy committee greatly appreciates it. So
Hopefully we can meet in person one day soon. I'll try to make it.
Yeah.
Good point, good point. So, Cheryl, I guess we'll take care of getting this over to
We'll mail it to her.
Thanks again, Lily.
Thank you.
All right. Let's see, our next informational item is Cincinnati Recycling and Reuse Hub.
We have a speaker, yeah.
Erin? Yeah, thank you.
Hi, everybody. My name is Erin Fay. I am from the Cincinnati Recycling and Reuse Hub. You can look at it right there. Yep, it's fun.
If not, I can do it. Here, you know what?
Okay, there we go. Since I only have like 10, 15 minutes, I'll skip through some of this pretty quickly, but, for those of you who don't know, we are the Cincinnati Recycling and Reuse Hub. We are located at 911 Evans Street in Lower Price Hill, and we have been open since April 1st, so just about 4 months now. To kind of get started, the 2018 Green Cincinnati Plan was to reduce Cincinnati's carbon emissions by 80%, and so 8 different areas being worked on. I'm sure a lot of you already know all of this information. So, diverting waste, though, is our big mission. There are a couple of founders of the hub. I am one of them. I've been doing a TerraCycle program for about 6 years. But our mission and our goal is to revolutionize how people think about things and provide kind of a central location where people can bring a whole host of things to be either recycled or reused. How we fulfill our mission. So a giant one, and one that I'm extremely passionate about, is education. We have a pretty comprehensive website that feels very user-friendly and simple and hopefully answers a lot of questions. Part of our future mission is to collaborate with a videographer to make some short videos, kind of how we do things and how the public can do things better. We're on social media, all the places. We've heard great feedback on our Facebook page. We do our best to answer questions there.
email, phone. We also have a newsletter that we've been doing for about 2 months now. We both have a volunteer newsletter and just a hub newsletter for general information. So you can sign up on our website to get those emails. And then promoting other organizations around the region. So if we don't feel like we can take something, our goal is to connect that person with someone who we think can take it. And then honestly, again, one of my most exciting parts is providing education programs. I've done a few like zero waste classes over the last couple of years, and my goal is really to be an educator of reduction of waste and refusal of waste, and get even, further past recycling, because I almost feel like recycling should be the very last R. Collections and connections. So we have drop-off events. Those are pretty much just electronics based. We do them, as of right now, once a month. We will likely not do them over the winter, but we're doing them about once a month. We have drop-offs during regular business hours, so we're open 3 days a week. We're open on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Again, referring people to other organizations and finding new outlets for items. So we're constantly working on, can we take something, and if we take it, where can it go? History of the hub, so just a quick history. Generally figured out that we diverted 465 tons from 2008 to 2019. That's from Colleen McSwigan, did a lot of electronics battery bulb collections in Mount St. Joe. Carrie Harms did zero landfill, which was diversion of like carpet squares, like architectural materials, contractor type materials, interior design stuff. And then I was doing the TerraCycle program via my son's school, via my front porch for many years. So we all were, basically just using outside and our own homes, and we were moving locations a lot. So we came together to find one permanent location so that we don't have to keep moving, so that we can divert more waste. This is where we are. So we are on the 4th floor of this giant warehouse. We are just renting it, so it is a temporary space. We figured we wanted to get up and running, and we wanted to start collecting waste rather than trying to find enough money to buy our first space. So our ultimate goal is to purchase a warehouse so that we can increase our diversion and increase our education and all of that, but this has been fantastic for us for the time being. Right now, we have everyone come in the first level, and we've got it kind of set up where you can drop off all your stuff on the first level, and then we basically take it all up to the 4th floor and then sort it. We are discussing having everyone just come directly up to the 4th floor, so that they can see our space, so that they can get better educated, so that they can really see all the things that we collect. There are a few people who are hesitant that could actually work because we would have to take them up and down an elevator. So that's a big discussion we're having right now, and looking for feedback. This is basically our space. So we have, 2 freight type elevators. It is not empty anymore by any means.
It does look like that.
That whole space is full of plastic and styrofoam and electronics and all the things. So this is pretty much all of what we take for right now. This list has evolved greatly over the last 4 months as we kind of learned our lesson in some ways. I think after collecting TerraCycle for so many years at my house, I was very hesitant to have a very long list. But this is kind of what we've gotten to, things that are clean, usually, things that have a direct end, generally, things that we have enough space to store. A lot of what's on there is TerraCycle, so I could talk about TerraCycle for a really long time. I won't do that, but it is, it's a recycling for hard-to-recycle items, so it's very specific, which is in some ways awesome. There is less room for ambiguity.
Erin, am I missing the plastics on there, or maybe I'm not reading fast enough. Do I see?
Plastics. So she just put plastics on the left side under footwear. It's the fourth one up. So we basically take
Oh, there we go, plastics.
all
Okay.
plastics 1 through 7. Yeah, clean, dry. And as of right now, we are sorting all of our plastics. We did get a plastics baler on Monday, so that is a giant revelation and will enable us to take more plastic, if that's even possible. But it will allow us to store it better, because right now we're storing our plastics in Gaylords, and as you can imagine, a Gaylord full of berry containers is mostly air. So the baler would definitely allow us, we think one bale will be 5 to 6 Gaylords. So it will definitely allow us to store more in a more efficient manner. So then where do things go? So we do not, what's the word I'm looking for? We do not specifically like recycle in our facility. Like we're not the ones doing something to the plastic. I'm sure there's a word and I can't get it. I don't remember it right now. 99% of our things are going back out. So to Brightmark, to Green Disc, to TerraCycle, to Eco Development, we are basically just housing the thing to then move it along.
It's more like a MRF.
Yeah.
Recovery facility.
Correct. We're recovering it and we're moving along. We are not
Yeah.
blah, blah, blah. Yes.
You're not building it down and turning it into a product.
Correct. Correct.
Recycling.
Which I think, I don't think the general public understands that that's what we're doing. So I am very big on let's pull them up to the 4th floor and let's have them see what's really happening. Logistics are tough, obviously, but I'm big on, I've taken the recycling tour twice. I'm big on, like, you need to see it to fully understand. Are we gonna get everybody to see it and fully understand? No, but I 100% think that people, they need more. They need more information. They need to know what's really happening.
Yeah.
That when you throw something away, it's not away.
When they see it, they realize it's Santa's elves aren't sorting.
Correct. It is literally me and Karen and all these people who are standing up there sorting things. I'm putting the TerraCycle into boxes and I am putting it into my car and I'm dropping it off at UPS. These are people doing this stuff. So again, where do we refer things to? We have a lot of partners, Matthew 25, Indigo Hippo, Scrap It Up, Half Price Books. Our goal, and my huge goal, is reuse again before recycle. So can we get the things back out into the world to be reused instead of recycled? This slide was made before we did our takeaway day, so at the end of June, we did our first zero landfill takeaway day. We're hoping to do those every 2 to 3 months or so, but those days are basically where we have the public come into our space and take anything they want. We had about 8,000 pounds of things that day be taken away, so it was extremely successful. We had about 250 people. Everything from egg cartons to office supplies, to fabric samples, to we have these super kind of weird black boxes that I think housed,
Film.
They weren't film, they were Braille books. They housed Braille books a long time ago. Somehow we ended up with them. We have 100 of them. But at least 4 people took these books, these boxes away. They're kind of strange, and so, it was very interesting that day to see what people were willing to take, really freaking anything. So that is a big goal of mine, I think. How we're funded, so yes, we are 100% volunteers at this point. At this point, no one gets paid anything, so we are constantly in need of volunteers, both in the warehouse when we're open and then on our electronics day. That's kind of the day that we struggle to get the volunteers the most. We have an electronics event on the 24th, so if anyone is not busy, we could use volunteers. Grants is one of our major funding sources at this point. And then donations. We are working on corporate sponsorships and partnerships, and then our program fees. So we do charge for electronics, batteries, and light bulbs. Everything else is free to drop off to us. Tires too, but we don't get any tires. But basically, we have to charge the public. That's another, like, that's been an education piece, because people have been used to, these one-stop drop days for so many years, where they could drop off their electronics for free. And they need to understand that the reason that they could do that was because someone funded that day, not because electronics recycling is free. So that's, we've had to kind of get over that. But we are finding that people are willing to pay. They're willing to come to us, they're willing to sort their stuff, they're willing to store it, they're willing to pay for it. But yeah, so we're working on some more grants. We're gonna do an annual fund drive in September and October. And then how you can help, how everyone can help, volunteers, we always need volunteers, bringing items to us for recycling or reuse, making a monetary donation, and help spread the word about what we're doing. This is Colleen's info. She's the managing director of the hub, and then I am the board president. There are 19 board members, and then Colleen, and that is our information. That is all of that. Does anyone have any questions for me?
You mentioned how many tons, up until 2019,
Yeah.
from your smaller efforts. Do you have some goal or some projection of what you hope in the future might be the annual impact on tonnage that isn't going into the landfill?
Yes, the short answer is yes. The other answer is I do not know that number off the top of my head, but it is definitely in our business planning. So I just don't know that number. Colleen does a lot more of the nitty-gritty day-to-day numbers business planning. But yes, we do have that for sure. The goal is to divert from you.
So Aaron, I have a question for you. Do you also sort of act as, I'll call it sort of a broker, so if someone calls you, particularly I'm thinking like a commercial manufacturing operation, says, I have this stuff, I don't know what to do with it, can you help me? Have you gotten those kind of inquiries?
We've got a ton of those.
So where you don't even have to pass the material through your facility?
Correct, where we can just say this is, and that's, really a giant thing our board does is basically research where things can go. That is, and a lot of times we'll get calls, we haven't gotten one where it's like, we have a whole warehouse full of something. We have gotten a lot though that are like, we're cleaning out, we're renovating an office space, and we have, 50 of these tables. Sometimes we'll just post it on our Facebook page, which has actually gotten pretty good reach so far. That'll make connections real quick, and then we also will make calls to try to figure out where people can divert stuff.
So you answered my second question, which is you have an online presence that
For sure.
you can tell people, these are materials that we presently have available.
Yep.
If you want to come and pick them up, they're free.
Yes, and people can come at any time. Like, we have a lot of, the Cincinnati Permaculture Institute, I think is what it's called, the Civic Garden Center, we take plant pots. So we have 10 different garden-type places coming to pick up plant pots on a consistent basis. We take egg cartons, and especially the styrofoam ones, instead of recycling them, we stack them all up, and then we have tons of people who just have chickens who come to get, 50 egg cartons at a time. And that's one of the biggest goals over time, is to have extensive lists of people who are just constantly coming, and picking things up.
I got a question, using the egg cartons as an example. So in terms of individuals coming and pick them up, that's fine. Do you run into any sort of, I'll call them, health regulations in terms of if you start distributing those out to, say, a more of a commercial operation, or have you run into that kind of situation?
We have not yet.
Okay.
Not that that's impossible.
And last question I have for you is, what's been your most unusual item you've had as a request? There's not a hard one, there's so many.
I know, last week we got a doll, not a human, but an animal, and we have gotten a sexual toy. Oh! It's plastic, but it wasn't in the garbage. That was the second week we were open. I was like, oh my God, who brought us that? That was really weird. Yeah, and I don't even know, a dog skull like, what are we doing with that? I don't know.
Well, you know, one day when I was down there volunteering, you had hundreds of sheets of foam core.
Yeah.
Which was kind of which was surprising to me that it's so valuable.
It's so valuable, which I think we had 6 pallets of foam core come, which I think was just excess somewhere, which is typically what our stuff is. And that's one of the things that the takeaway day, one of the most valuable things on the takeaway day is that foam core.
Yeah, have you talked to teachers? Have you brought in teachers?
Yes, which part of the takeaway day, like that, we want artists, teachers, and, you know, whatever, is our goal. A big one is teachers. We probably are off on timing a little bit, like we did it in June, and we probably won't do it till like October again.
Yeah.
But teachers can come in literally any, like, and that's what we keep telling people, like, you can come anytime we're open, and you can wander around upstairs, and you can take whatever you want. And that's really the goal.
In 1979, 1980, way back when, I ran a teachers reuse center on Jefferson Avenue. Warehouse is long gone, torn down by now, but it operated where the teachers could come in on the last Friday of every month, and I accumulated material from office supply stores.
Yep.
That they donated the material and they got the tax write-off. And the teachers absolutely loved it. They came in and took anything, and as long as they recorded it on a clipboard, it was free to them.
Correct, and we just make sure we weigh it and record it.
Yeah.
Other than that, it all goes back out. That's all of our office supply stuff, pretty much was taken away.
And I wrote grants to pay for the program, and it was fairly easy to get grants back then. It's hard these days.
It's harder, which we write a lot of grants right now, and we're working on writing some more specific grants for specific items.
Yeah.
But, yeah, it's not as easy.
Any other questions out of the policy committee?
So your long-term goal is to purchase the warehouse?
Not that warehouse, but a warehouse.
Yeah,
He just purchased that one right before we got in there. He's a new owner of that, but a different warehouse at some point, yes. So that we can be a little bit better set up and have a tiny bit more space. Right now, we're only on that 4th floor. If we have more space, we could collect more things.
Well, thank you, Aaron, for taking the time to come out.
For having me.
Thank you. All right. Our next item is the Cincinnati Biochar project. Sam, how are you, Sam?
I'm not a fan. I am Ollie Cronin, here on behalf of the team, includes Sam. All plus one for the Reeves Hub. I was able to take half my dad's attic down and recycle it. Thanks for the time. First, thanks to Michelle for accommodating us. I am Ollie Croner, Sustainability Coordinator with the City of Cincinnati. I am here on behalf of a team that includes city government, University of Cincinnati, and Green Umbrella, who are all working together to stand up what we hope will be a biochar pilot in the City of Cincinnati. So to start here, we're trying to bite off a pilot-sized bite. Focus on Parks Department. Parks Urban Forestry Program plants and maintains 85,000 street trees around the city in less than hospitable conditions. They lose about 20% of those annually. Between dead trees and limbs, pretty significant amount of organic waste. Made worse by the increase in storm events, the flooding, the rapid accumulation of wood debris. Frequently, they have to get a dumpster, take it all to the landfill to just keep pace. So we have a chunk of wood waste that could be composted, but is instead going to the landfill, not separated, and is contributing to our climate issues. This is a problem that was also faced by the city of Stockholm in Sweden. Through innovation, they turned this liability into an asset, featuring a technology called biochar. I'll get into what biochar is in just a moment, but first I want to tee this up saying that Bloomberg Philanthropies has awarded Cincinnati a spot in a 10-city pilot, where we are receiving coaching and technical implementation strategy over a concept here is to replicate what Stockholm has done on a small scale and then build it up further. What is biochar? The biochar is very similar to charcoal in its appearance. It is produced by exposing biomass to high heat in anaerobic conditions. It has numerous benefits when used as a soil amendment. So if you think of charcoal, you think of a very porous material. All of those pores allow biochar to soak up water during storm events, retain water during periods of drought, and then slowly release nutrients and moisture to plants, trees, when they're needed. Additionally, Aaron, thank you for featuring the Green Cincinnati plan in our decarbonization efforts. Everybody focuses on trees for sequestering, capturing carbon. Well, it turns out that trees are good, but they're even better at passing carbon from the atmosphere into the soil if the soil is primed to receive it. So biochar is able to act as the carbon sequestration substance in the soil. So on top of all of these benefits, on top of helping trees survive these conditions, the new conditions we are facing, it also offers a pretty significant waste diversion opportunity. So as I mentioned, Stockholm is really leading the charge on this. This is actually an ancient technology used by indigenous people that is reemerging as a primary climate solution. Here you can see an example on the left, soil with and without biochar, and then on the right, trees planted in those conditions. And you can see how much more robust the tree canopy looks in a short amount of time. So here in Cincinnati, we are looking to build a closed loop wood chip to biochar and compost program in collaboration with the Parks Department, focusing on their wood debris, installing a processor that may look like the one you see in this image. They take all of their wood chips, convert it to biochar, use it in their tree planting efforts, alongside composting that could be used to activate the biochar with nutrients. Again, as I mentioned, we are a Bloomberg Science-Based Biochar grant recipient, so we are one of 10 cities around the world. We're working to stand this up. We have been working with a group of delivery associates who are providing coaching, thinking through what this will take to make happen. And now, at the end of September, we are allowed to put forward a proposal, including up to $400,000 of matching funds, and they seek to award half of those 10 cities. So 6 months is not a long time to develop a thorough plan. We're in the process of fleshing this out. The concept as it stands is our Parks Department will invest in a biochar processor, work with a third-party operator to operate the facility and produce the biochar, which will then feed back into their planting efforts. We have some work to do in terms of quantifying the volume of waste that Parks has on an annual basis. Made somewhat difficult by the increase in storm events. We need to select the sites because one of the key benefits of this process is that there's pretty significant waste heat that can be used to heat a facility should be located on city property. And then we need to identify, based on the site, the ideal processor. So here today, to socialize this idea with this body of experts, hope to lean on your knowledge, your connection to resources as we try to move this forward and identify matching funds for our September 30th proposal to Bloomberg Philanthropy. I think this is an opportunity to leverage local monies, bring in fairly significant external resources from a national philanthropy, stand up a small program that could grow to something much more significant. We do have a handout that covers some of those details if I went too quickly. But happy to take any questions. Yes, Bob?
Could this grow? I mean, first you gotta show success with the Cincinnati Parks, but could this grow into the Hamilton County Great Parks program?
Yeah, there's some conversations with Great Parks already. Stockholm is able to receive
they've grown it that far.
Pretty significant. They've then turned it beyond what the city needs. They have a surplus, and they're able to sell that to help fund the effort and sustain. So yes, we have an example of a fairly successful model. Minneapolis is a bit ahead of us in terms of developing their model. They are also looking at something similar.
So Ollie, this committee, before the pandemic, spent some time talking about the anaerobic digester, which is now operating here in Cincinnati. And I understand they don't create the biochar at the end, but in terms of what can go into these two different kinds of receptacles, it's all organic, but, I mean, can you say something about that? You're focusing on wood chips and things like that. It's the primary thing, but ultimately, food waste can go in. What, could you, help me understand that?
So I'll confess that I am not the biochar expert on the team,
Okay.
but I can tell you that different processors prefer different feedstocks.
Okay.
So yes, we are focused on wood chips and wood free at the outset, but depending on the processor we select, it could receive a larger variety. And I'll look to see if you have any.
Yeah, so the different forms of organics, it just, whatever it is, has to be uniform. So, like, if you envision, like, a shipping container or the back of a semi-truck, so a kiln about that size, you would calibrate just for
The
fresh
type
wood
of
chips.
stuff you put in.
Right.
You
And
can't
then you
mix
would
it
get
up.
a second one that you would calibrate maybe just for shredded pallets and take the metals out. And then maybe you get another one for some other, so the different types of organics, other than the wood chips, would need some research, I think.
Okay, thank you.
Is the general concept that this would be ultimately used, you talked about a heating source, I didn't quite understand that part.
Yeah. So the processor is exposing the organic matter to high heat.
Okay.
And the waste heat can be captured and used for a variety of things. In Stockholm, they pump into district heating so they can heat their entire population. Here, we would envision pumping it into a city facility or a facility, depending on where it's located, to offset the heating needs of that location.
That sounds like you're pretty early into this process. You probably can't answer the question, but have you given any thought to, I guess, maybe a cooperative program with an industry that already has a waste heat source that, they're not using for whatever reason? You could feed that into your biochar and then kind of create, not exactly a closed loop, but kind of a cycling back. That's a lot more administrative and negotiation obstacles to overcome.
We're absolutely exploring public-private partnerships.
Okay.
That exact model that you're describing has not been an avenue we've explored thoroughly. Really, the idea has been if it's at a city location, then that heat will offset the utility bill, and the savings is right there. But it's an interesting idea. If you have any.
Do you know anyone who's looking for some heat?
Sure.
Because we would love to talk to them.
There's a
So any leads?
bad time of year to talk to people about heat.
Tony's focusing on the excess heat. What about the fuel you need to create the heat in the first place? Is that a real?
Electricity. It has to have electricity.
But is it very fuel intensive to get this process going? It's not like Bitcoin mining or something like that. I mean,
Right, I have data sheets on how many BTUs
Oh,
I get
okay.
you, but I'll tell you, when I read over it, it glazed out like.
Okay.
Karen,
So I
I
can give you a data
think
sheet.
the point he was making is that, it's gonna take some heat input, but there's also the other side of this, is there's
Coming out the other,
heat output, which they're hoping will do.
Kind of balance it out.
They can recirculate at least some of that back, and two, they can use it also as a
Okay,
heating
thank you.
source for the facility.
And the other requirement is water, because once they're fired, the chips have to be quenched. Otherwise, they turn into ash.
Okay.
There's a variety of processors. Some are very simple, some are more complicated. Some have emissions, some do not. We'll have to weigh those options
you need, matching dollars to keep this Bloomberg funding going? What's your
The
timeline?
proposal will be due September 30th,
September 30th?
so we are rapidly looking to put together a financial stack.
Yeah.
We have some money within the city budget that we think we can point to for the acquisition, but we will need to attract additional dollars.
When's our next meeting?
In mid-September, September
September
15th.
We would need a proposal before the 15th to make a commitment for the 30th. Okay.
All right, well, thank you for coming out, we appreciate it. It's an interesting program, new to me, I've never heard this, so it was very helpful, thank you.
Great.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Good.
Our next agenda item, Carrie Davis? Carrie, could you just sort of give us all just sort of a brief introduction that I'll be honest with you, when I saw the agenda, it kind of threw me off, the child advocacy for rights and equity presentation. So, but as I read through it, I figured out what's going on. But if you could give us a little background on yourself,
I'm the Director of Child Advocacy for Rights and Equity. And it's kind of funny since you guys all know Todd Fortune. He actually was the impetus of me starting my own organization. He said at a board of commissioners meeting once, after we had had several butting heads, he said, if there's one thing we've learned when Carrie Davis talks, we better listen. And that was after bringing 3 legal actions against the county because they refused to listen to me. And so I went to, the legal arena because I couldn't get any response. And I changed the way the county hires, got rid of a lot of the nepotism. I got $32 million for residents across the state of Ohio, I don't remember the figure in the county, where I discovered that the state computer system was miscalculated and in violation of federal law, and got $32 million for them. And I can't remember what the third thing was that I did. There was something else pretty cool, but my organization primarily, we started out advocating for families and children, and I represent people in administrative hearings before school districts. If you have public assistance issues, I would represent, because the law is just too complex for a lot of people who are needing those services, and they can't afford an attorney, and so they go to 10 steps down from an attorney to me. And my degree's in legal studies from UC, graduated summa cum laude, my organization was named Ohioan of the Year in, I think, 2004. And I was deemed an expert witness in administrative law, and that's why you get so much legal practice, because I love the law. I love figuring out solutions to problems by using our laws, and that's what I'm throwing at you all. Did that answer your question?
Yes, that answers the question.
I hate to waste time talking about me.
That's okay, thank you, Carrie. So, we've allocated about 30 minutes, we'd appreciate it if you focus in on that, because we've got a lot to cover.
Thank you for that much time. That was really generous of you. I was out crying in the other room. I left crying, because I don't know how to get you guys to act. I can do the work. When I found out nobody in the county was going to appeal the decision by the Ohio EPA to challenge Rumpke on their decision on Bond Road, while everybody else, 4th of July weekend, was out with their family having fun, I was sitting in my living room doing legal work and wrote a brief to support my community, because I feel that we have an opportunity to engage and get a better position for our community with that Rumpke deal. And it's upsetting when you go and you do all that work and nobody will back you. And so today I'm here, this is my second time coming, and I'm here to ask you to please just take a little step for me. I would like you to pass a motion to direct your director to appoint an ad hoc committee to propose possible rules for the Board of County Commissioners to consider that may improve the quality of life and the environment and give residents a voice I read incessantly. I read you guys' meeting minutes all the way back to 2000, January 2000. It was brought up at that meeting where one of the township trustees was on the board said, we need rules. You know, everybody's got rules, everybody's passing rules, we need rules. And, at the next meeting, Mr. Rumpke was appointed to the board. And I could not find reference to any rulemaking ever discussed since then. But every county, every solid waste district around us, including Covington, Butler, all of them, they all have rules. Our plan actually says, basically, this is in a quote, that we are going to divest our responsibility as the committee and as the board of commissioners, and we're going to give it to the industry leaders and let them make the decision. If you go to put a landfill in Butler County, you gotta go to their board, not just the Ohio EPA. You gotta go to their board, all right? In Claremont County, Adams County, Warren County, Franklin County, you know, all of them have a process for the modification, expansion, and establishment of landfills, and what rules they want them to fulfill. And we don't. We're a major metropolitan county. We literally do not have a single rule. So in the packet I sent to you, I got done with it at 7:17 this morning. And the problem was, I kept thinking, I already sent them this. I already said that. You know, and so I tried to find a way to present to you all to make you listen to me and help me to do what I think is right. But in that packet, I cited the rules from our neighboring county districts. And these are good rules, and they're fair rules. And I didn't put all the good ones in there that benefit the industry, but they have rules to protect them too, you know? And so I would like you guys to pass a resolution directing him to establish an ad hoc committee to propose some rules. And of course, we want to find a method by which you all can participate and look at them and review them. But we need to get this to the Board of Commissioners. You guys don't have the authority to pass anything. You already authorized the Board of County Commissioners to be able to make rules, okay? And they are telling me, talk to you guys first, so they want your guidance and approval. So I'm going to read a little part of this because it was important to me, so I'm going to make sure I say it. Residents have been bound for 20 years without the protection of any rules. We are empowered to address the issue of solid waste. Our county plan, type in there, literally says that we divest ourselves from the responsibility we have, and we leave it to the private sector to determine the best interest of our community, instead of embracing our duty as commissioners, as committee members, as public employees, and as citizens, you know, to do better and to not do business as usual. And the only way I can see, because I don't know, that's why I was crying, I don't know what to do to get you guys to say, this is an important issue. If everybody else has rules, why don't we? You know, we're residents here, we're left just with the Ohio EPA. They are very restricted on the things they can even consider, you know, talking about or listening to. So the state of Ohio has left it up to each district to make their rules and comply with them. And we have an opportunity here to take some of this animosity in the community and unite to create rules that are fair to everyone instead of being so heavily, well, they're literally in Rocky's lap. The other thing is, when I was here the last time, Denise, my memory is that Denise asked the legal counsel to get a legal opinion to let you guys know what your real authority is. What is the framework and parameters of your authority? And me and Michelle, we butt heads on this. But it's been 2 months. 2 months. In the meanwhile, while we're waiting for this legal opinion to income that I thought was going to be provided to me before this meeting, they just went and got another, change. And nobody's, doing anything about it except me, and I'm not a lawyer. So while we're waiting, we don't have time, because the next thing is going to be the permit to expand. And so we have to act promptly, immediately, to get this done and get it before the Board of Commissioners and get up to where our neighbors are. They've been doing this for 20 years. Why aren't we? I just don't understand. And, if any of you, how do you guys feel about that? What am I doing wrong? What dance do I need to do? What song do you want me to sing to get you to give our residents in Hamilton County the same voice that every other county has around us? What do you want me to do? What more can I do to help facilitate this? I mean, I work my butt off. I did spend 3 hours with the grandbaby on 4th of July, but I literally worked 14 hours a day doing the research to write that brief. And it might fail because I'm not a lawyer. So what do you guys want me to do?
Maybe I'll start off with a comment. It is, and then I think you recognize this, that it's a complex situation. It's complex because it goes back, at least in part, to the legal foundings of the district, the state laws that established it, what the district may or may not be able to do in that. So, and I do recall that Commissioner Treehouse did make that request at the last meeting, and I assume that, it was taken back to the, I guess it's the county prosecutor's office, and they are researching it. Now, I have no way of judging how long that takes to do that, and understand what you were saying about, potential timing, but, I tried to get through all the information, that he had sent, and, but I didn't, to be honest with you. So I'm speaking just as one policy committee member here, is that, I certainly would want to take more time to walk through this and understand it better, and get the input from the county prosecutor's office on maybe I'll call it the legal boundaries or legal options within which the district can operate. We really, the district has a lot of legal charges, statutory charges, I guess it probably is a better way to do it, as well as responsibilities. And Carrie, we need to understand that as well, in terms of kind of what our parameters are that we can operate within. And then, as you know, it gets into considerations of just not what statutory requirements there are, what are sort of policy issues in terms of overall policy issues that the district would need to address. And you get into some of the technical and finally, and not least of all, is environmental issues as well. So that's kind of my overall thought. It didn't answer your question, but that's to kind of say where I am on it right now, anyway.
Well, that's just why, I had spoke to a few of you privately on the phone before the last meeting. And so one reason I'm so worried is because, somebody asked me, cite it, show us, because we don't know you, so cite it for us. So I cited the actual law for you all so that you can look at it. I would think if somebody cited the law, you would ask your legal consultant, just flatly ask them, is this what this says? But here's the proof. Now, what I'm telling you is absolutely correct. Everybody else is doing it. They've already done this. Every other board has made the decision to include in their state plan that we will have rules. And every other board has taken it to their Board of Commissioners and said, here's the rules we think we need. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. There is nothing unique about Hamilton County that makes our duties and statutory requirements. We are no different than everybody else. And all these rules that I presented to you are quoted from their plans, which have all been approved by the Ohio EPA. So if just looked at the rules in the state of Ohio that have been approved already, and we put a box and sent out a survey to you guys and said, which ones do you like? And you check the box, we know it's going to be approved because it's already been approved by the director of the EPA. So that's why I'm copycatting and citing everything to you, is so you don't have to rely on my this much legal education. You can rely on the prosecutors and the attorneys who have consulted every other solid waste district. I think we have a problem when our solid waste district legal counsel has sat for 2 months. I mean, how many things do you say to them and say, we need to know, and you don't get an answer? You don't even get an answer in 2 months. So I think we need to follow, we don't have to reinvent the wheel. I think we should follow the blueprint that has been laid before us. I'm sure Franklin County had lots of attorneys looking at their plans. Their rules are in here. They've been approved. How do we take the next step?
I've got some questions.
Yeah.
So, Michelle, when did you become aware that the Bond Hill wanted to expand from 100 acres to over 500 acres?
I don't think that that has happened.
What?
They asked for they want to change their entrance. They're not asking for an official expansion at this time.
So there's not an expansion request?
Actually, I've been to many meetings. Bill Rumpke III was there, and he did a great job, very nice young man. I'm old, so everybody's young. But, no, they have explicitly stated, and they stated in the newsletter that they sent out to all the residents and to you, in April, because if you look at the dates of those letters I sent you, one of was written April 22nd. That's how soon, so it was before that Rumpke sent notice to all the neighbors. And they said, right now, they only bring in 1 truckload of garbage a year to Bond Road. For all intents and purposes, the residents in that community thought this landfill was closed and only accepting construction waste. They only take in 1 truckload a year. Now they are proposing to promptly start bringing in 20 to 30 truckloads, and that's in that newsletter that you have from April. So they gave us notice that Mr. Rumpke at the Whitewater Township meeting said that they are going to increase it in the future, they don't know when, to increase it 4,000 tons a day, from 1 truckload a year to 4,000 tons a day. You're talking hundreds of trucks, right? But 4,000? I don't know how many trucks. So they have made it very clear they're changing, their operation, they are increasing it. But Rumpke's very smart. They are very good businessmen. And so what they do is they do things in steps, incremental steps. So once they get step 1 done, and nobody has stood up but this crazy lady, Carrie Davis, then they take the next step, then they take the next step. There's actually a court decision where Rumpke sued Colerain Township, where the judge said, you let them go this far, and you did nothing to stop them. Now what do you want them to use the land for? That's not word for word quote, but he said, you let them go this far and did nothing. Now what else can you use the land for? Okay? So we can't just ignore that this is going on. In my opinion, the Board of Commissioners and this board should be asking their legal counsel, did Ms. Davis present a viable claim that we might prevail on? Okay, and if so, then we need to have that reviewed. You guys are responsible to the community, not me. This isn't my job. You guys decided to be on this board and to protect the issues involved in solid waste. And the commissioners did. I need you guys to step in and help. And not being a lawyer, I've made lots of mistakes. I'm pretty used to being told, honey, you're wrong on this. That doesn't bother me, and then that takes us down the right path. When we get rid of the mistakes and errors I might make, it takes us closer to the right path we need. But today, just want you to direct your director to establish an ad hoc committee to organize the rules and determine which ones they think should be presented to you all, for you guys to look at and approve and give feedback on. We can do that over the internet or whatever, and then take it to the Board of Commissioners, because that's all it takes, from the best I understand. That's all I want.
So, Carrie, I personally thank you very much for all of the material you have presented. It's all new information to me, and it's valuable information, I believe. What your request that we do something today, I think, is not probably can be acted on. I mean,
He told me that you guys can amend your agenda and.
well, no, it's not an
for
agenda
a
issue.
resolution.
It's really an information issue and a feedback issue. We need more information to decide what we're going to do. We need to hear from the legal counsel, and we need to know that. We can't do anything right now until we have a chance to digest all of this. So I think we, as a committee, need to, decide what next step we're gonna take, and I'm not sure it's the right way to do that.
Right, and that's why I'm trying to figure out the timeline. Like, where is this expansion? Like, are we gonna be too late?
Yes.
Like, we
No,
can't be
it won't
too late.
be too late to stop the big one, the final one, but they have already, there's an appeal pending to stop them from moving the entrance. And to start bringing in equipment, installing wheel washers and weight scales and stuff like that. It's a good business plan, the way they do it. It just doesn't help us, it hurts residents. What they do is they take incremental steps, and each incremental step where we shut up, then it lays the foundation for the next step. So we get ourselves so far in the hole that by the time the big one comes, we're already married to it. So at this juncture, and let me say this, because this is one reason I was trying. I've been talking to Michelle about this since at least April. I was supposed to, at the last meeting, give you guys a presentation, and I was told a couple of days before, no, my committee doesn't know enough about this yet. I'm gonna have to educate them. And I was upset, but I said, fine, please copy me on all the materials you send them to get them up to speed for the next meeting so that they can make decisions. And although I made that public records request, maybe she sent you stuff, but I haven't gotten a copy of it. I haven't gotten a copy, so I don't know that's why it's so upsetting. I'm doing everything I can, and I feel like nobody in the district or on the board is pushing for this to be done, when common sense tells you something is really wrong here when we have no rules in Hamilton County. This is, to me, borders on dereliction of duty. I mean, you guys have an obligation, and so does the Board of Commissioners, to protect all of us. You haven't done it for 20 years. I've been talking to you since April. I can't get anybody to step a foot forward. So I'm frustrated. I don't know and now you want more time, and your next meeting is until September. I appreciate that, because I'm upset the whole 2 months. I'm digging, trying to research, trying to get a better grasp. But it's not, what are you gonna do at the next meeting? All you're gonna do is say, haven't I given you enough to say, the old girl's right, something's going on, and we should explore this. And our legal director or assistant should be helping whatever committee we establish to define this so that we can bring you guys a report. I'm terrible, I'm sorry. I just don't know how to do this.
Yeah, yeah, Bob, good. Yeah. We need to take lead from our district attorney, and I know you've heard that. I'd like to acknowledge that we have received your material that you've sent, and that Michelle has forwarded it to us. And I've read it, and many of us have read it. We acknowledge the material you've sent us.
And she says my material is excellent. That's what she just told me before the meeting. But, so I think it's pretty reliable.
Let me add something also right now, because you keep referring to me, how the process works for opinion requests. And this one, I don't know what happened, but I believe Michelle sent something in, the commissioner sent something in. This opinion request was not assigned. So I have no information on what you need today, so.
And just so you know, I've reached out to her 3 or 4 times since that last meeting to touch base with her, and the last thing I was told is, I'm not, I don't wanna put words in your mouth, but basically, I'm not allowed to talk to you.
You sent me.
That somebody told her she's not allowed to talk to me.
You sent me a package wanting me to review it for recommendation. I am the lawyer for the solid waste district. I cannot give you, legal advice.
I'm not asking you for anything.
Well, that's how I'm looking at it. I cannot give you advice on what you're gonna be presenting to my client. I can't do that.
Yeah.
I can't
But
do
she
that.
has not brought any advice to you. She knows this issue's brewing, and she has not weighed in. And now you guys want the residents in over by Bond Road, 20,000 people, to eat it,
Well, let me speak.
because you guys don't have the time to do something.
Well, I'm familiar with the plans that you quote, the Franklin County and Butler County and Adams, Brown, as well as Claremont County, and I'm familiar with those plans. And they have those rules as adopted by their district and approved by Ohio EPA.
Yeah.
And there's a process that they went through that if this district was advised to do so, would take quite a few months to do so. There's a process.
To be
And,
honest, I tried to research that process thoroughly last night,
and
and
it's
I can't find where that process is written
it's a-
down anywhere.
it's a plan adoption process, and this committee would, and I cannot speak with authority, just an opinion of myself, but it's a process of adoption of a plan. And this committee, if under advisement of its district attorney, would adopt rules and then submit it to Ohio EPA for approval. And it's a process.
Right, and that's why I suggest we
And
stick
so
to
the point I'm raising is, we do not have authority to establish a task force or establish rules at this meeting.
No, you, actually, frankly, I told the Board of Commissioners, you guys don't control them at all. You already authorized them in the plan to make rules. You already authorized them to make rules. And I told them, you don't need this committee, do it yourself. You can make your own rules, you can establish your own committee. But, and I respect it and appreciate it, especially with the kind of staff you have like Michelle and Brad that are very knowledgeable. I mean, they know this stuff forward and backwards, and they've been in it so long. I think this is a good place to start. But I want you to start. So what I'm hearing from you is excuses to delay it. I've been pursuing this since April, and at what juncture do we actually do something? So the Board of Commissioners are waiting for you guys to do something. You guys are waiting on the legal counsel to do something, and meanwhile, they're proceeding and digging a hole. And all those residents, 20,000 of them, are falling into that hole every day that you guys delay.
Can I add something?
We've set aside 2.5 more minutes.
Okay, let me add something. Carrie, did you file the appeal?
I did.
So, is what Rumpke gonna do on their roadway, is that right now stay? So they're really not doing anything right now?
It does not, under the rules, it does not stay their actions, okay?
Did you file and ask for a stay? Because you can do that.
If it was something else, we would, but they have so many preliminary things to do, and we have, my first hearing on it will be, I think, in a week and a half. And here's my issue. I mean, I'm really great at legal research, I'm really great at that. I'm not an attorney. There is a huge difference between Terry Davis, the advocate who has all these credentials for doing a good job as an advocate, and an attorney. So we are, if you don't join the action or even recommend to the commissioners that they join or intervene, then you're stuck with me, and I'm not an attorney. I didn't commit to be on this board and take care of the residents. I didn't run for county commissioner and promise to take care of the residents. You know, I need you guys to stand up and do, first, you need an opinion. You do need an opinion, maybe Carrie's a nut job. You know, every suit I won, I was called a nut job and crazy, you know, until I won, you know. But maybe I'm wrong on this. But April, I've been bringing this to this board, this committee, this department since April. And all I'm being told is next meeting. And that means they win. And I think, I don't understand where you think you don't have the authority to create a, in the packet, I showed you where Adams County, you know, they have like 3 different committees for their solid waste board. 3 different committees.
We have no rules in our plan that allow us to establish such a committee.
Well, and our plan, we got work to do on our plan. We definitely have work to do. But I did not see anything in all the hours of research that said you had to have, in your plan to establish a committee to give you advice on a topic. I didn't see anything like that.
Let me interject real quick also. I think, Mr. Chair, early on at the very beginning of the meeting, didn't you state there were 2 members that were missing? That
Correct, yeah.
you would need the members here also to go through whatever other things you needed to discuss.
That would be my
Right.
suggestion to the rest of the policy committee, because those are 2 actually very key statutory members, both of them. You know,
And I'm offended they're not
county
here.
commissioner.
I'm offended. With as important as this is, I'm offended.
I can't set their schedules.
I know, but you know, when Denise Driehaus tells me, wait till after this meeting, and then she's not even here, I find that disturbing. That she put me off in presenting to the Board of Commissioners until you guys do something. They're waiting on you all, that's their excuse. They're gonna wait on you because somebody has told them they need to wait on you, and actually, they don't have to wait on you. They can make their own rules, they can submit it, they don't even need your approval. The only way you guys come in is when those rules get incorporated into your state plan. Once it goes into the state plan, then you guys have a say. Then you guys can execute.
Tony, I have a question about the process for our committee. Do we have the ability to have an executive session right now for just the members of this group to just try to figure out in our own minds where we stand or shouldn't stand? Where the process is, I mean, is that a possibility?
I think, can I talk?
Sure.
I think at this stage, what we understand, and Ms. Davis gave the presentation. This is a presentation. And we took the presentation. The next step is the legal work. And I don't think so we are required to go on executive sessions right now. She submitted the presentation. This is a long presentation. And let's hear from the legal advice.
Raj, 2 months ago, this board directed the prosecutor's office to give them a legal opinion, and they didn't do it.
Well, I'd like for you to kind of rephrase that a little bit. We cannot direct the prosecutor's office to do anything. We can make I guess actually the request probably formally goes from us to the county commissioners, or maybe goes directly to the county prosecutor's office. So, you know, they're an independent county department, or I don't know what the term is on it exactly, but you know, we can't direct them to do anything, no more than we could direct the health department to do something. So just
Actually, they're your legal counsel, and when you ask them a legal question, they are required to answer you in a reasonable amount of time. 2 months to answer a question is unacceptable when Rumpke had a permit pending. they have waited till after that permission, it wasn't a permit per se. They have waited. That's compromised your legal position. I think if nobody in this room knows why you haven't got your legal opinion yet, somebody needs to find out, because it's inexcusable for the prosecutor's office, once this board, who is represented by them, and you ask them a question, why they have not given you an answer. You absolutely have the right to demand an answer. They are your attorney.
Let me ask something here, can I? When the board, any board, public health, solid waste, asks a question, there's a process. Then, normally, the agency head will send it to Joe Dieters, and then the process is funneled down. And like I said earlier, that assignment was not assigned to me, right?
Right.
So that
Get
opinion,
out of it.
so don't keep pointing your finger at me in my office, because there is a process. It's not like, Tony, I need that opinion from you for the next meeting. It doesn't work that way. So
Yeah,
I heard it.
actually.
Well,
does work
it
that way,
doesn't-
because
it doesn't
you have
work
legal
over
issues
here.
pending. If you have a court
And I'm
hearing
just saying, it
coming up,
doesn't
you
work
might work
here.
within a schedule.
It doesn't work here because
Mr.
the agency head sent it over to the prosecutor's office. And then it's funneled down, all right? I have no, I'm not responsible, I don't know how they're gonna assign it, but this time it was not
I
assigned.
don't even know it's assigned then.
Carrie, let me give you a little insight, it has nothing to do with this one, but I know in past years, what Yifang just said, that's been the procedure that is, and as she said, it's for every county department that's represented by the prosecutor's office. That has been the process. I know it seems slow, and maybe it is slow, but they have a set procedure they go through, that the prosecutor's office does, and the county does, I guess, for how to handle, when requests are made for a legal opinion on things.
I could start, first off, I don't know if I've been deep in expert witness in administrative law by the state of Ohio's court, all right? So I'm pretty good at this stuff. Process is what I do. Yes, she's right, there's a process. But if you have a court hearing, or if I filed a lawsuit, you're not gonna just keep waiting. There's different things that bring in issues to the front of the room, And when you have an appeal pending, and you have a time limit, it is unethical for the prosecutor's office to not give you the legal position and your rights until after the appeal period is over. That is malpractice. To not give you a legal opinion when you have a legal matter that has a deadline. And by the way, Mr. Aluto called me the day the deadline hit. Wouldn't call me before that. Called me on that day at 5:05 and said, I talked to legal counsel and it is their opinion that we don't have a clear pathway here. And I said, what do you mean? And he's like, well, we just don't see a clear pathway. And he said, and we discussed this legal opinion with Whitewater Township and you guys. So why did Mr. Aluto tell me that they were not going to appeal the decision based on the advice of the prosecutor's office? What if he got the opinion and you guys haven't been told? I mean, I'm sorry, sometimes when I do a project, it gets ugly. Sometimes it gets ugly. You wouldn't believe what I had to do in the Northwest School District to make them give those kids their IEPs. I ended up having to bring the state of Ohio's Department of Education in and do an investigation of them. And the report even said the staff was deceptive to us in our questions. And finally, they all told the truth, and we got a corrective action plan. So I think right now, things are getting ugly. I've been delayed. There was no reason why I couldn't have done this presentation and you guys be making a decision today. I should have done it 2 months ago. That decision, the opinion should have been in. You guys should have had everything in front of you to say, do we want to do this or not? Personally, if you guys vote not to create rules, I think it's disgusting. To me, it's horrible. I sent you 5,000 people on those documents that I sent in the email. are asking me to come and talk to you. 5,000 people who have committed to it. I don't know how many other people. You guys need to make rules. We deserve rules just like everybody else. You know, do you know why 50% of the trash coming into Hamilton County is coming here? Because everybody else has rules. Covington is sending their trash to us because we don't have rules, and they have rules that say you're not allowed to have the open space of your landfill bigger than this big because it's going to make that neighborhood stink. All right? They've got that rule on their books. We don't have that rule in Hamilton County. We don't have not one rule. So I can't imagine anybody having a good excuse to kick this can down the road another 2 months. Somebody needs to act.
So Carrie, here's what I would say. Continuing your impassioned presentation isn't going to change, no, I'm
I
serious.
agree.
It
No, I
isn't going to
agree.
change what's going to happen right now in this meeting. I renew my question to Tony. Is there such a thing as the possibility of some executive session, just so that we can at least clarify our minds about what's happening?
To answer your first question, can we call an executive session right now? I don't know, but maybe that is gonna be I don't know what we would really discuss, other than we can't discuss what we don't know, so I'm
Well,
not
we might
sure what we would
discuss what steps, if any, we feel we have to take to know. I mean, I don't know, I'm not sure. I just feel confused, okay?
Yeah, I just, and I know this is what Carrie wants to hear, that I don't feel comfortable with even doing, I guess, passing a resolution that we form an ad hoc committee, because I don't know what, other than an ad hoc committee to address rules and regulations. I don't, yeah, I guess we could pass that, but we need more direction than that.
No, I agree with you on that, I agree with you.
And we don't know what our flexibility is, I'll call it that, our range of authority, whatever you wanna call it, to do that from a legal perspective, how that, Bob, you brought up, wait a minute, how does that work with the whole plan process? I don't know that,
I agree with you on that, but as a general representative to this board, I am concerned when citizens come and ask for action, and I really don't know what our authority is, what our pathways are, what it is. That's what I would like to know more about, so anyway.
And I just, Carrie, one thing at least I'll say I was ignorant of, I didn't know there was, that you had asked this board, maybe I totally missed it, was to somehow participate in I guess, an appeal to ERAC. I mean, if you did that, I missed it.
It's, the very last line of the thing I mailed you, that I've been in communications with the committee, and, not the committee, excuse me, your staff, and thanked them, and said, you know, I'm very good at this part, the research, I'm not a lawyer, please step in and take it over. And I will add that, for example, Tim Mara with Oxbow contacted me, and after reading my brief, and he said, wow, I'm impressed, you nailed it, I'm impressed, I was shocked. And 2 other attorneys have contacted me and said, you nailed it, Carrie, you nailed it. It doesn't mean we'll win, okay, because this is a case of first impression, it's never been heard, this issue's never been raised. It's very, very possible it'll get booted, you know, but the fact that the brief, 3 attorneys have contacted me and said, wow, that's, you know, I felt pretty good about myself. But I agree with you. I think there is a lack of information on structure, on how you guys can proceed. I don't believe you guys don't want to proceed. I don't believe you guys don't want to address this issue. But I don't feel you're getting the structural support in which to do it. And I know I've been delayed. And like I said, I've been asking since April, you know, how do we move on this? And here we are. So.
Yeah, Sue.
So my question, I have some questions on how things are proceeding, like with Rumpke, Like, yeah, if I lived near a landfill that had one truck a day, I'd be thinking it's closing.
One truck a year.
One truck a year, exactly. And so, I wanna know, what is Rumpke's plan, for this, expansion? Because some of the letters indicated they're going from 100 acres to like over 500 acres, which I think is substantial and community changing.
Yes.
And do we have time to address this before that happens? Because I know through the plan process, we will be getting numerous tutorials on our site, on our ability to create siting rules, and years past, we have always deferred back to let's just let the Ohio EPA rules go, and we haven't made, this policy board hasn't made additional rules.
So let me see if I can help you. Maybe you can help the group. Michelle, do you think you can contact Chuck Biancher, who has the specifics on what's going on at Bond Road?
Sure.
Because originally, I was part of Bond Road way back, and I believe Larry Rowan was also. So if you can contact Chuck, put together a factual sheet for the board members, I think that'll be very helpful for them. You know, what they're asking and things like that, and what previous history's been. You think that would be very helpful?
Yeah,
Because
so
right
if you
now,
can,
you can talk, this
I don't
way
wanna wait
we'll
2
have-
months if it's like the
Right.
appeal's due in 4 weeks,
Well,
like,
she's already appealed it.
then,
She's now asking for different agencies to intervene, because the appeal has already been appealed.
so
It's
it's
being appealed.
stopped, so things are stopped right now. And we have time to educate ourselves. That's what I wanna make sure that,
You have time to educate yourself.
how much time? Before that,
Before what?
before the next step where they move forward.
The appeal, she's filed the appeal. Right now, I would assume that ERAC is gonna put a stay on it. I would assume that. Or you're gonna file for a stay on movement on it. So this way, it'll give Michelle time to get together with Chuck. I think it'll be very quickly done, because he has a whole file on this, to give the board members some information.
There's a pretrial conference, first week of August, I believe it was August 4th. If you want, to my phone, I can look and give you exactly the
And I
time.
think at that time, you could
On
ask
August
for.
4th, you guys need legal counsel in there, or you're leaving it up to the old lady.
Let's listen to her. You've already filed the appeal. My understanding is that through your request in your packet on the very last sentence, you are asking us to intervene, and asking the commissioners to intervene, and asking public health to intervene, and at this point, no one has intervened.
Because none of the boards have been informed on what's going on and what the consequences are and how this works. Nobody has been bringing any of you guys this kind of
You're talking
information.
about this board, right?
I've been going to all board meetings.
Okay,
ma'am.
but I'm just.
Nobody has been informed. None of the persons who are.
Okay, I'm not gonna get into the, I'm not gonna get into the
We
legal.
just want to understand what the current process is.
I'm not gonna get into the legal issues of what the appeal was on, or what the finding was, or why it's being appealed, all right? So right now, it's been appealed, all right? And what Ms. Davis is requesting is for other agencies to intervene with her on the appeal, all right? Whether we do that, we can say yes, or we can say no, and at this point, it sounds to me, the board members still need factual information on Bond Road, from the very beginning of what it's been, and why we're here, right? And why there was only one truck going, and things like that. I think that would be very important information that Chuck Biancher upstairs in public health has, which will be very informative.
On August 4th, they can throw the entire appeal out, just so you know, and then it's done.
I think we've kind of had a long discussion on this, which is good. Carrie, do appreciate the information that you provided to us, the letters, and I think it was a copy of your appeal to ERAC. But I think we're back to where we were at the start, which is we need to better understand this, and better understand from a lot of different perspectives, environmental, technical, how this fits with our policy, how it fits with the state's regulatory program, and from a legal perspective as well. And I know your position has been, I think I've provided you all that, and I've shown how other districts have done it, and we appreciate that. I think that's gonna be very helpful. But we we need to have, I'll say it this way, our own sort of independent, investigations, analysis, assessments.
And I love that. But you asked for that 2 months ago, they haven't done it. If you don't act to intervene, then you are refusing to stand up for the residents. You, by not acting, are approving it. You have a duty to act before the 4th and intervene, or you forfeit your right to come forward. Because in my opinion, Rumpke's attorneys are gonna be there. The AG's office, I loved his response. It was encouraging, actually, because he discussed the possibility of settlement negotiations, which made me think, well, he must think I might be right, or he would be running a settlement negotiations. Me, against their attorneys. That's what you guys are giving to Hamilton County if you don't intervene. Now, I think you better check, maybe Terry's loony, right? But I think you need to ask your prosecutor, explain to us why you have not recommended we intervene. Explain this to us, before we lose our rights because you haven't explained it to us. They've had 2 months to come to you and tell you, and they haven't done it. So maybe he'll review it and he'll say, I don't care what those 3 attorneys say, look at this is stupid, that makes no sense, she's wrong here and that. And you'll say, okay, the old girl's crazy,
Yeah, we're at a point now where, I'll say almost, I don't even know if we even have a legal right to intervene. And your position would be obviously different than that, which is fine on it. So that's kind of my say on it. I think at this point, I don't think any further discussion is gonna be really
Tony, one thing, the suggestion was made, a good one, for Michelle to contact us, that's one thing. But I think another point would be how do we find out from the prosecutor's office why they have not either issued some sort of official answer or decided not to appeal because of reasons, just so we understand.
Explain why they don't want to appeal.
Who would make that request to the prosecutor's office for a response? Who should make that? Can you?
Well, you also have to look at the view too, after the board reviews the facts and things like that, whether or not you guys want to appeal. It's not that
we want to know why the prosecutor felt that it wasn't appropriate. That's, I would find that very important information.
I believe the last 2 months ago, the issue was something else. It wasn't even about the appeal. That appeal issue wasn't even in our office.
Oh, okay.
It was for the authority. They asked, what is our authority and powers to act, which would include, do we have the authority to intervene in lawsuits, blah, blah, blah.
My understanding was, it had to do with citing, the plan, the stuff, nothing. Appeal is separate from citing.
Yeah,
That's all I can say.
that's my recollection also, that the issue of, joining an appeal for ERAC, it was not there. It had to do with, the district potentially what's their authority to adopt rules and regulations, citing criteria, a bunch of other things.
Yes, you're right.
And the second part of that question, which I think would actually follow on, is that, so yes or no, and if it's yes, then what's the procedure we would need to follow?
Right.
On it, so.
Yes, the general
sort of two different
authority
issues.
of the board is what you were asking.
So.
What are you able to do? What are you guys able? I hear that you want an update from him, and I respect that. I like to see the stuff too, because sometimes I'm mistaken. But then what? I mean, what are you gonna do?
So Michelle, do we need to make a motion to get that information from the prosecutor's office in a timely manner so that we can intervene?
It's already been done. It's already been done.
Okay.
There's no need to do a motion to make it like that.
Okay.
Tony, I think, Ms. Davis presented the case very well. We are aware of the problem. The prosecutor is sitting here, she's aware of the problem. I think, we got other, business we need to take care of it. We should proceed, and let that presentation concludes now.
I think I don't think any kind of resolution is needed at this point. Michelle, if you can follow back up, I don't know whether it's directly for you or from Brad, follow back up with the prosecutor's office and request an update on it and see what it is.
One last thing that
Yes.
just came to my mind.
That's okay.
If you go to the Hamilton County Public Health, and Craig Davidson here, isn't there a big section on the Bond Road issue and questions and things like that, that you'll be able to find information on?
We received a lot of, questions from the public, so we responded to all those, and put a Q&A up about bond roads.
The request to the district.
Yes, that'll be helpful.
It's pretty well covered there in the minutes.
All right, well, maybe we can get some information from you as well then.
Yeah.
A briefing would probably be helpful for us to, from the health department's perspective anyway.
We'll have Chuck Bianca work on it.
Yep, okay.
So what you're saying is, not until mid-September are you even going to do anything?
Well, I would,
It's not like-
I think it depends on what we hear back from finding out where the prosecutors, I mean, I don't know, it doesn't sound like, I don't know. Default
Okay.
doesn't know, they could be delivering a
Again,
opinion out in the week.
let me clarify.
You're not involved with it, I know.
No, I'm not, but
Yeah.
let me clarify something. You keep asking, like, what information back, whether or not they're gonna appeal, is that what you wanna know? Because that needs to be decided among the members, right? And that's why I'm trying to give you the information from Chuck, because I can't go off and say, oh my God, this needs to be appealed, right? So,
I think the only thing we have asked the prosecutor's office for, in my understanding, has to do with is the citing and rules and regulations. That the ERAC appeal process is something we have not asked anything about, and I mean, if I understand what Deepon is saying, I agree with her, that I don't have enough information, that we've done on our own to say whether we should or shouldn't even be considering an appeal to ERAC on this.
And it might not, to be honest with you, I don't think you're, okay, when I sued the NFL, I was in the same fight with Top Fortune and the Board of County Commissioners. And nobody else would sue them, so I did. And everybody said, she's nuts, she's crazy, she don't know what she's talking about. I mean, they said that in the paper. Until Judge Spiegel ruled on the decision and said, by God, the plaintiff has made a claim upon which relief can be granted, and I've never seen a brief so well laid out in my career. Then my phone started ringing from all over the country of everybody wanting to represent me then, okay? Well, and Todd, I'm like, Todd's like, we're the real party of interest. The Board of Commissioners are the people, are the ones who are supposed to represent the community, not you, old lady. He didn't say it that way, he was always nice to me. He said, thank you for doing this, but it's time for you to step aside and let the real party of interest, that's a legal phrase, step in and take this over. And I was like, thank you. That's exactly what I want you to do, because I'm not qualified to sue the NFL.
So, we gotta wrap this up, go ahead.
so can I just be assured that we're gonna get the information in a timely manner so that if we have the ability to act, that we can act before September, if we have to, before September? And that we will get that information and call a special meeting.
I will reach out to Chuck DeJonker to get that information, is that what you're talking about?
Okay, yeah, I wanna make sure that,
you have this box right here. There's
okay.
your box.
So I wanna make sure that we get the information so that we can have a meeting to properly discuss.
Back.
Not wait till September
Back up
if
for a
we
minute.
can't wait.
We can request that of the health department, but I'm gonna go back to what I said before. They don't report to us. We've worked extremely well together. So I think, I don't want this to be presented to the health department as a demand, and you shall provide us this at this specific time. It's a request to another department, another governmental department. We can request a timing on it and explain to them why we'd like to have that timing. But I'm not gonna sit here and say, I want you to guarantee me that you're gonna get this to us at some specific date and time. I mean, that's not appropriate, so.
I think I've talked to Chuck, some police guys, right? response very
I
comprehensive,
can't,
so happy with his
I can't
response.
speak for Chopper Health.
But I do think that in reality, I don't think you guys should have to do this either. I don't think you guys should be doing the appeal. I think it's the Board of Commissioners, like Todd Fortune stepped in on the NFL. The Board of Commissioners, the problem is, the Board of Commissioners is telling me at their meetings, we're waiting on you all. So I don't think I would actually even ask you guys to intervene. I think you would make a recommendation to the Board of Commissioners for them to intervene. They are the real party of interest who represents all the residents in the county. That's what I think the board needs. They're like you guys, they need to hear from the prosecutor. They need a good discussion with the
Mr. Chair,
prosecutor.
I know we're trying to wrap
Yeah.
this up.
I know, I'm not trying to get into
No, but
that.
I just wanna I just heard this point, and it's totally different from what I heard earlier, and I wanna make sure I'm hearing it correctly. So you really don't want this board to intervene, but you're really looking for the commissioners to intervene, but you want this board to make a motion for
The commissioners to intervene.
for the commissioners to intervene. Is that what
If
you're
you-
saying?
What I'm saying is, just like I have the authority to act on this case as a taxpayer in Hamilton County, does that make me the best person? No.
But I'm just saying,
Okay,
I was
you
just
guys
hearing
have
something
authority to
different.
act on behalf of the residents. Does that make you the best person? I don't think so. Do the Board of Commissioners have the authority to do it? Yes, they do, and are they the best representative? And the answer is yes. So I think in the perfect world, the Board of Commissioners are the ones who should be intervening in this case, not you guys. I think it's unfair to put you guys in that position. But they are the ones who told me, we're not going to talk about your issue and the issues going on until you've presented, literally, until you've presented to this board. And so you guys are holding up me going on to the next step because they want to hear from you. Do you want to make rules? Okay, they want to know, do you want to make rules? You know, they want to know what their authority is, you know, and their powers. And on this issue, they would want to know, do you guys support it? Do you think this is worthwhile? So you're an advisory committee. They want your advice because you're the ones who are knee-deep in the issues. So, I mean, even if you could pass a resolution, I don't know, that would say from our lay point of view and without the communication with council, we believe that these are three worthwhile issues, and we are recommending the Board of Commissioners take an aggressive look and timely look at these issues as soon as possible. That would thrill me if you guys said that, because then you're putting it in the ballpark of the real people who have to do it. In my opinion, but I'm not an attorney, that's my opinion, but I've been in this rodeo before, you know, with the NFL in the state of Ohio. I've worked on these actions before. So that's what I think. I would go home and cry because I'm happy instead of crying because I can't make progress. So that would make me happy if you guys could make that advice to the Board of Commissioners to proceed, that you support them looking into these issues and making decisions. That would help me a lot. Anything else I could do? I talk too much, I know.
No, thank you for your time today, I appreciate it.
Thank you. Yeah, I also really appreciate the information.
And we're gonna look at some more information and hopefully make a timely decision.
Okay.
Thanks for sharing.
Thanks, Jerry.
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
I hope I wasn't too disrespectful.
All the information you sent out obviously shows you put a lot of work into this, a lot of time and effort, greatly appreciate that. You're coming before the board, or before the committee, I should say. That fits well with our we've always encouraged public participation, we've always encouraged citizens to come in, or businesses, frankly, or other governmental officials. We've had all those folks come in and speak before us and give us their suggestions and opinions.
I can't wait to get this behind us because I am a business owner and there's so much with the recycling that I want to work on with you guys because I'm seeing things in the commercial industry, and it breaks my heart, actually, and it's like, we should be doing better on this. We should be providing better opportunities. That with these businesses I'm dealing with the people I'm a contractor for, it's like, we can do better, you know, with all of these things. So we'll get this one, I want some dang rules, you know, and get some rules made, and then I can start working on the recycling program.
Thanks.
Thanks again, Karen.
Now we're crying my car.
Let's see, where do we leave off? Hamilton County Solid Waste Management Plan update, brief update on just the status report, I guess, on that, Michelle.
Sure, we're just in the process of, doing a contract with a solid waste consultant and reviewing the proposals for the DEI, and working on a few sections, as I've stated in here.
Okay.
I'm just curious which consultant that you hired.
I can't announce that publicly until we have a contract.
That was my question.
Just a curiosity.
Okay.
Anything else, any questions besides the one that Bob had? All right, Waste Reduction Innovation Grant Overview, that's attachment D that was sent.
Yeah, so with both of these, this is really written in detail. Cher did a great job writing these up. The first is just the grant that we have approved in the last, since the last meeting. And then the last one is the final wrap-up of a 2-year grant, which was the Organics Diversion Grant. And I really have nothing else to add besides what Cher wrote, but certainly if you have any questions about those, I'm happy to answer them.
No, I just thought, Lucy did a really good job at transitioning. Boy, wow.
Amen.
Impressive, yeah.
I think there's still maybe some public comment, so.
Okay. It's down on our list here, Organics Diversion Grant, fund wrap-up, anything else on that?
No.
Okay. Environmental Enforcement Program, I guess, Deputy Keith.
He's not here.
Yeah, so I think, you know, the information he sent is pretty self-explanatory as it usually is. I know we typically have some specific questions we like to ask him, but, so far I think we've all been pretty happy with the results from that program.
Yeah.
And obviously from looking at the 2022 budget, it will continue. So, any tentative future agenda items?
I would suggest biochar would be a discussion at our next meeting.
And
I'm sorry, so I didn't hear what you said.
Biochar.
Oh,
At our
biochar.
next meeting, because their deadline will be shortly after.
Right.
so what's their intent, or he wasn't very specific, was he gonna put an application in for a request for funds or?
Requesting funds, yeah.
They're gonna request funds.
Well, we can put that on the list, but unless he gets the application in, it's not gonna be on the agenda or whatever, so, okay. Any other policy committee members' comments?
I have a question, just in general. And I am somewhat conflicted about this because I have personally become very involved with the Recycling and Reuse Hub. So put that out there first. But, sort of contributing to this is my husband's, pretty intense involvement with the last mile, food rescue. And what's common about both of these efforts, and this is why I raised the question, they both are not-for-profits that started specifically for what results in landfill reduction. They aren't like our typical grants go to not-for-profits that are already existing and have staff and some operating expenses, and then they have a specific project or grant, you know, that they want money for. What I see as different about, and maybe there are others, I don't know, maybe biochar is like that too, I don't know, but because I've been involved with these two, the food rescue and the hub, they're totally volunteer operations that were founded specifically for this purpose. They have no other source of funding or operating expenses. And I don't know if there's something that this solid waste policy district can do to support that kind of operation, which is totally helping us meet our goal of landfill reduction. And it's like, yes, they can get a grant to buy a baler for plastics, or that, but it's not the same thing. they have overall operating expenses that any of us who have worked for grants know that getting grants for operating expenses is almost impossible. So that's just my question. Is there some openness to even talking about that as we look forward in the strategic plan for the next 5 years, as we talk about finalizing budgets and things? Yeah.
Yeah, historically, we have entertained creative ideas outside of the grant cycle when we had extra carryover money.
Well, and I know that carryover money is a
And so,
thing.
I think that's where the discussion goes on, because we have over $1 million
Right.
here to decide how to spend it and develop potentially new programs
Yeah.
to meet a need that's been
Yeah,
identified like this.
Exactly.
And I think what you're speaking of is seed money for startup programs.
Correct.
And it is hard to find money for salaries and operating expenses. Rent and that. And long ago, many decades ago, it was called seed money for the startup funds of an operation. And I think we should entertain that thought if we feel their business plan. We look
Right.
at their business plan and
Exactly.
and we feel.
Yeah, no, I'm really glad to hear that, and I think as we moved forward, particularly with this carryover money, that might be a first place to maybe even consider this in a concrete way, so that's
Yeah.
great.
Michelle, I think we can include that in the look in our plan update, but right now, I think all our programs, for as long as I can remember, they were really focused on whatever you wanna call it, seed or capital dollars, not ongoing operation.
Correct.
Yeah.
The idea was that, at that time anyway, we had a number of organizations coming to us saying, if I can get money to do this, if I get money to buy a baler or everything, that's gonna help my organization, and that's what I need.
Capital.
The only caution I would have on providing operating funds is I think that is the accountability issue on that, in terms of then, but wait a minute, we're not just talking about a one-time expense, we're now talking about funding, and if we're gonna fund operating expenses, that means that the question then you have to ask yourself is, how long are we gonna fund this?
Correct.
Is it gonna
Right.
be the first year, is it gonna be 5 years, is it gonna be forever?
Mhm.
And then the whole issue of accountability and reporting back and the last issue I would have is, I assume, it's a big assumption on my part, that we can provide that type of funds, that we can use our funds for that.
Right.
So that's another question.
Yeah, and I think you have really good points, and I would not support ongoing permanent funding.
Correct.
That's why I mentioned business plan. Where in the business plan does it show that it's self-sustaining or there's replacement funds?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Michelle, maybe you remember this, I vaguely remember that, didn't we fund a paint recycling program sometime back that I think we did provide operating funds for some time?
We did.
And Bob, as I recall, and I don't remember the details, but I think we asked for all that information, you said, give us your business plan, and it looked great,
And then it died.
it died.
It ended up not,
I have seen many projects
Right.
go.
it ended up not being economically,
Yeah.
it did not pay for itself and become profitable, but it's still operating today, out at Matthew 25.
Yeah,
Still
so
in
that,
operation,
so they
still
were
doing it.
nonprofit took it. It was a very,
Yeah.
they had a lot of, I shouldn't say a lot, but they had a number of customers who were loyal to them, who loved the fact that they were getting that recycled paint and used it, and truly used it, so there were some pluses and minuses.
Yeah, but one of the things about the kind of organizations I've mentioned is they have no ability to become they're not charging any fees for anything, and so their only sources of funds are grants, whatever. I mean, you can't say, well, if we just could, a business plan, in 5 years, we'll be self-sustaining. Well, they're never gonna be self-sustaining.
Maybe a replacement grant.
Right, well, I'm just saying, it adds an extra, all they're doing is helping the county achieve its goals. So anyway, that's enough said, so,
Okay.
yeah.
Thank you, Karen. Public comments? Anyone? All right, thank you. Upcoming district meetings, next one is Wednesday, September 15th. As assume that will also be in person, at least at this point, as far as we know, and the same location. And just, I'd like to sort of wrap up with, I'll sort of apologize, not apologize to the committee for letting Carrie Davis go as long as she did. But it is an important issue. We have said that we have a policy for wanting to hear citizens and businesses come in and give us their view on things. So I think it was time well spent in that regard. I think we've learned some things. I hope that Carrie walked away, with a better understanding of our view at this point on it anyway. So, because we were targeting at 3 p.m., and now we're at 3:45, so. Anything else, Michelle, that you can think of?
Nope.
Susan, good luck with the meeting minutes. No, they'll be extensive and well done as usual.
They're always very good, yeah.
All right, I think with that, can I get a motion to adjourn?
I'll move we adjourn.
Second?
I'll second.
All right. Epon, thank you very much. Appreciate you coming here and helping us.
No worries.